We live in an era where silence has become suspicious. Moments without sound, without motion, without input, they feel wrong. The second the noise fades, we reach for something. A phone, a podcast, a scroll, a tab, a song, anything to fill the stillness. We've built a life where emptiness feels like failure, and stimulation feels like survival. But beneath the constant buzz of notifications, the hum of background videos, and the dopamine highs of endless content, our minds are quietly drowning. This is the age of overstimulation, the biology of too much. Your brain wasn't built for this pace. Every sound, color, and flicker of light is data, and your brain processes it all through a chemical gatekeeper called dopamine. Dopamine doesn't create pleasure, it creates wanting. It's the signal that says, do that again. When you scroll, every unpredictable post, every like, every new sound, every comment gives your brain a micro hit. Neuroscientists call this the variable reward loop. It's the same pattern that makes slot machines addictive. And because your brain loves novelty, it begins to chase it. Not because you're weak, but because your neurochemistry is doing exactly what it was designed to do. Repeat what gives reward. The problem, we've hijacked that system. We now live inside an infinite slot machine, one that fits in your pocket. The cost of constant input. Here's what overstimulation really does. It erodes your baseline dopamine. The more you flood your brain with highs, the lower your baseline becomes. So when the noise stops, you don't feel calm, you feel empty. That's withdrawal, not boredom. It fragments your attention. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that sustains focus, starts losing efficiency after every quick switch. MRI studies show that multitaskers have smaller gray matter density in this region. It confuses the nervous system. Constant alerts keep your body in a low-grade fight-or-flight state. Cortisol levels rise slightly but chronically. You become alert but never at rest. This is why peace feels foreign. We've chemically trained our minds to reject calm. The fear of silence. Have you ever noticed how silence can feel almost hostile, like a mirror that reflects your own restlessness? Psychologists call this sensory deprivation anxiety, when the absence of input forces the brain to confront itself. For many, silence feels heavy because it reveals how overstimulated we really are. In a famous 2014 study at the University of Virginia, participants were placed in a quiet room for 15 minutes with nothing to do. They were given two options: sit in silence or give themselves a mild electric shock. Over 67% of men and 25% of women chose the shock. Pain, it turns out, was preferable to stillness. This is not about comfort, it's about dependency. We've become dependent on stimulation to feel alive. The culture of perpetual motion. The modern world rewards those who move, fast, often, constantly. We measure worth in output, visibility, and response time. Offline now sounds like an inconvenience, almost an absence of existence. But behind the scenes, this is not progress, it's overclocking. We're using attention, the most finite cognitive resource, like it's infinite. Attention researcher Gloria Mark found that the average digital worker now switches tasks every 47 seconds. Each switch costs the brain around 23 minutes to fully refocus. That means most of us never reach true concentration anymore, only fragments of it. And yet, the more distracted we become, the more productivity tools we build. We create systems to manage the very chaos we designed. The psychological loop of noise. There's a reason we crave constant background noise. It's not just habit, it's self-regulation. When you're overstimulated, silence triggers withdrawal symptoms. You feel restless, bored, anxious, so you add noise again to soothe it. That temporary comfort becomes reinforcement. The loop closes. Behavioral psychologists call this a negative reinforcement cycle. It's the same pattern seen in caffeine dependence, social media addiction, even toxic relationships. In short, you're not seeking stimulation, you're escaping the discomfort of its absence.
The mirror effect. Silence is confronting because it removes distraction, and distraction is often how we avoid ourselves. When the noise stops, your thoughts appear unfiltered. Every unresolved feeling, every half-buried insecurity, every someday resurfaces. This is why people say they hate being alone with their thoughts. But solitude isn't the enemy, self-avoidance is. Philosopher Blaise Pascal wrote, "All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone." That was in the 1600s. Now we carry thousands of rooms in our pocket, each louder than the last. The stimulation economy. The truth is, our attention is not just overstimulated, it's monetized. Every notification is an economic transaction. Every click, a behavioral nudge. Every recommended video is not random. It's a dopamine-optimized prediction designed to keep your brain in the loop. Neuroscientist Anna Lembke calls this the dopamine economy. She explains the modern world has made every reward immediately available, which means our brains are constantly out of balance. The result? We mistake engagement for satisfaction, and we confuse exhaustion with achievement. Relearning calm. So how do we reverse this? How do we retrain a brain that's been conditioned to reject quiet? Not through detox, through recalibration. Sensory reset. Choose one part of your day, breakfast, a walk, showering, to do without audio or visual input. Let your brain experience raw silence again. At first, it will itch. That's withdrawal. Stay with it. Monotask practice. Neuroscience shows that single-task focus increases alpha brainwaves linked to calm and creativity. So choose one simple task, write, clean, draw, and give it your full attention for 15 minutes. Dopamine neutrality. Delay gratification intentionally. Before opening an app or checking a message, wait 30 seconds. This micro-resistance restores baseline dopamine sensitivity. These small acts aren't discipline, they're rehabilitation. Micro-facts that change perspective. The average person consumes 74 gigabytes of information per day, enough to fill 16 full-length movies. The brain can't distinguish between urgent and loud. That's why alerts hijack your focus even when unimportant. After 40 minutes of continuous scrolling, dopamine receptors reduce sensitivity by 30 to 40%, causing mild irritability and fatigue. Studies at the University of Hamburg show that silence of 2 minutes can lower blood pressure more effectively than relaxing music. Silence isn't absence, it's medicine. The return to stillness. To live meaningfully in an age of overstimulation, we must relearn how to be bored. Because boredom isn't useless, it's the birthplace of imagination. Children daydream less now than any generation before them, not because they're less creative, but because their environment leaves no gaps to fill. But the mind needs gaps. It needs stillness to process, integrate, and invent. Creativity researcher Dr. Sandy Mann
found that participants who did boring tasks before creative exercises produced ideas that were 50% more original. The empty moments we avoid are the soil where insight grows. The courage to be unavailable. We often talk about finding peace, as if it's a treasure hidden somewhere far away. But peace isn't found, it's built, one undistracted moment at a time. To be unavailable for noise, even briefly, is an act of defiance. In a world that monetizes your attention, protecting your focus becomes a quiet rebellion. So maybe the goal isn't digital detox, maybe it's digital discernment, choosing what deserves your mind instead of offering it to everything. Because silence isn't the absence of life, it's the presence of self. Closing words. Tonight, when the world goes quiet and you feel the pull to fill it again, don't. Let the silence hum. That discomfort you feel, that's your nervous system remembering how to breathe. You don't need another notification, another scroll, another sound. You need to return to your baseline, to the unfiltered stillness that made you human in the first place. Because beneath all the noise, your mind is still there, waiting. And when you finally meet it again, you might realize silence was never empty. It was full of everything you'd been too busy to hear.